In the busy streets of New York City in 1881, a man manages to avoid another. He eventually walks into a building while appearing to be worried. He spends more money inside to send an express telegraph. A young man gets a telegram from his uncle, asking him to act quickly to save him. The young guy walks to the vast estate of his late uncle, John Carter, where a lawyer informs him that John Carter passed away suddenly and left the young man with everything. The young Edgar Rice Burroughs, Darryl Sabara, is passed an old journal by the man. After the attorney has left, the young man starts reading. After the American Civil War, the narrative starts in Arizona. Gold prospecting is being done by John Carter, Taylor Kitsch, a decorated military captain in the Confederate Army. It appears that the locals don't like him. Carter is under pressure to join the cavalry under Colonel Powell, Bryan Cranston. After many unsuccessful escape attempts due to Carter's refusal to comply, he fools a cell guard, knocks him out, and rides Colonel Powell's horse out of Fort Grant. Powell and the other cavalrymen start to pursue Carter, but they are forced to stop when they notice that Carter has met up with an Apache warband on horses. The tension is heightened by the fact that both sides are armed and cautious. Soon there is a shooting. Carter decides to flee, but Colonel Powell is shot, so Carter goes back to get the wounded guy. They locate a small cave after making their way into a box canyon. When the Apache see something on the rock above the cave, they quickly retreat. Carter wanders back to where the Apache had been and finds the spider symbol etched into the rock face. Powell is left near the entrance as he investigates further inside the cave. Carter discovers a strangely marked chamber, there with gold-lined walls and ceiling. Powell almost misses the man who appears behind him because he is so entranced, missing it entirely. The stranger is a balding man with a shimmering robe and a knife that appeared out of nowhere. Carter shoots the bald man during the struggle and discovers that he had taken a blue glow pendant. Carter picks it up and says the things he overheard the other person say. Suddenly, he awakens in an unfamiliar wilderness. Carter tries to move but trips over his own feet and seems to float. He takes a while to figure out how to move around in this unfamiliar setting. He is unaware that the gravity on Mars is significantly lower than what he is used to. He travels to the surrounding hill, where he discovers a clutch of eggs hatching into green, six-limbed babies. He is going to depart, disturbed, when he sees a bunch of green monsters coming. When they spot Carter, they start firing until one of them orders the others to stop. They are mounted on powerful animals and have rifles. The four-armed, towering, green extraterrestrial salutes Carter and puts down his sword and rifle. Despite a linguistic barrier, the two are able to offer their names, much like the Apaches. The chief of his tribe, Tars Tarkas, Willem Dafoe, is known as the Green Man. Carter is asked to leap again because Tarkas is aware that he is not a local. Carter seizes the opportunity to leap in the direction of Tarkas' weapons, but before he can fight, he is outmatched. Once more, Tarkas motions for the rest of his gang to keep Carter safe. They take Carter to their home in the ruins of an ancient city and gather the hatchlings, destroying the unhatched eggs. Carter is now scared and out of his element. He wants to return home and realizes that the medallion is probably the only option. Sadly, Tarkas has found the medallion and is sporting it. In the city, Carter is mistreated by other Tharks. They are unable to distinguish what kind of person he is, and because of his limited language skills, they perceive him as being similar to an animal or a baby. He is consequently placed among the infants. According to Thark tradition, the infants are thrown into the crowd, and whoever manages to grab one will be the hatchling's parent. The female Sola, Samantha Morton, who the other Tharks seem to consider with contempt, especially another female named Sarkoja, receives Carter, Polly Walker. She pours a drink into Carter's mouth after he has been cleansed and placed inside a pit to rest with the other infants. After that, he gains the ability to communicate in the native tongue. A conflict between humanoids is taking place in the distance. On airships, one side is blue and the other is red. They engage in combat. Three bald men approach General Sav, then from a crimson ship, Dominic West. He is given a blue mesh gadget that allows him to fire energy bolts, but when he attempts to shoot the three figures, he is launched backwards. The three numbers chuckle. They are Therns, the goddess's emissaries, and she has decided to support Prince Sav then of Zodanga in this battle. Mayday Shang, the Thurn leader, Mark Strong, motions for him to use his new holy abilities. The general takes the battle by firing energy bolts at the opposing ships. Data Thoris, Lynn Collins, is practicing a speech in the royal palace of Helium. The Jedek of Helium and her father, Tardos Moors, Sharon Hines, enter bickering with a group of people. Deja exhibits a device that emits a feeble blue beam, which she refers to as the Ninth Ray, and which she thinks is the source of their adversary Zodanga's newfound strength. One of the group, a disguised Thurn, stealthily zaps the device, rendering it useless as the entourage mulls over the alternatives. Tardos is aware that this ability might assist level the playing field, but they do not have time to continue their investigation into the enigmatic blue ray. Deja must wed Sav then to put an end to the battle. He informs her before dismissing the gathering. Deja is devastated because she understands that the wedding won't likely stop the Zavangan's growth, and that after being hitched, she won't be able to carry on her studies. Woola, a large, wide-mouthed, low-to-the-ground creature that is incredibly swift and insists on following Carter like a dog, no matter how high or how far he jumps, is now Carter's guardian back in Tharkvile, where he lives. Carter is frustrated as he searches for Tars Tarkas to obtain the medallion, but Woola is able to catch up with him and create enough commotion to foil Carter's plans. Carter eventually crashes into a Thark party, where Woola loudly enters and interrupts the gathering. Woola and his owner Sola were beaten by the irate Tharks. Enraged, Carter leaps in to stop the beating, accidentally killing a Thark in the process and demonstrating his prowess at long jumps. Carter is viewed as a fresh weapon by the Tharks, who are upset at Sola for letting Carter get away. The Tharks brand her the following day in front of Carter, who watches in horror as they forewarn her that her next transgression would result in death, because she has sinned so frequently that there is no more room on her skin for marks. When a sentry announces the presence of flying craft, the Tharks hide. 3 flying battleships with red, Zodanga, and blue helium flags suddenly materialize in the sky. For boarding parties and hand-to-hand combat, they close in. Carter is told that the Zodangans and Heliumites are at war by Tarkus, while he observes via a telescope. Deja Thoris makes an attempt to flee the ship, trips, and hangs on for several hundred feet. Carter recognizes that she is human and rushes to her aid. He rescues the girl with his long-distance jumping skills and begins to defend her, but she counters by demonstrating her own fighting prowess. Carter succeeds in turning the battle's momentum, but the blue helium craft crashes. Following this performance, Tars Tarkas gave Carter his Dotar Sojat, or right arms, and Deja Thoris as a reward. Tal Hages, a warrior with a broken tusk who competes with Tars Tarkas, Thomas Hayden Church, observes with enraged disgust. Carter declines the post because it makes him think of Powell, but Tarkas insists that if Carter declines, he won't be able to save Deja's life. Carter hesitantly accepts, and soon he is fending off questions about his talent from everyone. Deja wants to be able to jump as well as Carter, but she believes that since Carter has a different bone density than she has, she is unlikely to be able to learn how to do so. Carter is forewarned against her by Tarkas, who is aware of her attempts to acquire a new weapon for Helium. All Carter wants is to return home. He tries to describe his home to Deja, but she thinks he's either crazy or lying, because he talks about a place that hasn't existed in this area for a very long time. She assumes he is a Thurn because of his serious demeanor, and their discussion of astronomy eventually leads to the discovery that Carter is from Earth, which she refers to as Jasum, but that he is currently on Mars, which she refers to as Barsum. The Thurns will probably have the solution if there is a way to travel between the realms. Carter and Deja Thoris enter a cave that is purported to be a temple of the goddess and her adherents, the Thurns, despite Sola's attempts to dissuade them. The 3 are detained by the Tharks for entering the temple, before Deja has a chance to decipher any ancient symbols. At tremendous personal risk, Tarkas aids in their escape, and Carter surmises that Sola is his child. Given that Tharks typically hatch their eggs alone and raise their young in secret, there had to have been significant criminal activity. To solve the temple riddle, Sola, Carter, and Deja Thoris travel to the river Ice with the medallion. Carter receives a warning from Sola along the road that Deja Thoris is misguiding them. When confronted, she confirms they were going to Helium, and a furious Carter prepares to flee from her as he suspects she may have been using him as a tool to manipulate him. Dija begs him to listen to her, but he ignores her until she finally acknowledges that she did have a personal stake in the conflict because she is the princess of Helium, who will probably marry the prince of Zodangan and may even be slain. She is persuaded by Carter that he needs more time and that they should visit ice first. People who have committed sins or who have lived for too long follow the river as a pilgrimage route in order to achieve paradise and end their life. When Sola notices bodies on the ground and what appear to be Tharks sailing away, she almost follows them, but Carter stops her. They discover an upside-down pyramid-shaped building further up the meandering river. The solar system is displayed in dazzling blue images as Carter and Dija Thoris enter. The ninth ray, a blue ray Dija Thoris had been studying and which the adversary had been employing as a weapon, is the source of the blue light, which she now learns is artificially produced rather than supernatural. They also understand that Carter's appearance on Mars is probably the result of an Earth-to-Mars transmission of a replica of himself. On the advice of Mate Shang, an army of Tharks is approaching outside. He plans to put his skills to the test because he is interested in the stranger who is becoming involved in the fights. The three women, Carter, the other two, mount and run. Carter orders the others to evacuate as the hordes draw near, despite Dija Thoris's protestations. With only Woola by his side, he sticks behind to battle the advancing army. After killing numerous people, he is brought back to the destruction of war and the discovery of his dead wife and child in a burned-out farmhouse. Carter eventually succumbs, just as a war cruiser from Helium appears overhead to put an end to the conflict. Sab then and Tardos Mors get off the ship. As a symbol of trust, Sab then offers Dija Thoris his sword and proposes marriage. Despite stopping herself, Dija Thoris nearly murders him and orders them to take the hurt Carter to Zodanga for treatment. In a room with security, Carter awakens. He initially believes he is in Helium, but the red-clad soldiers chuckle. A man in blue appears and informs him that he is in Zodanga, as he considers the fact that he is in enemy territory. Kanto's Khan, James Purifoy, is the man who gives the orders to increase Carter's protection. As soon while he is close enough, he whispers to Carter to take him hostage, but Carter is too bewildered, so an irate Kantos pretends to be being taken captive as he drags Carter away from the guards. To a nearby tower, the two leap. Dija Thoris is decked out for a wedding inside. She dismisses everyone in the room after thanking Kantos for bringing Carter to her attention. Carter is once more asked to support her in battle. She finally notices the wedding ring on his finger as he declines once more. Dija Thoris tells him the magic words that will send him back to Earth after realizing that his heart belongs to another woman, but now that she is deceased. Guards from the Zodangan Empire demand admittance, but when the door opens, Carter is nowhere to be found. Dija Thoris and the others depart, but Kate Fowler, the chamber's matron, comes back in and then departs once more. At this point, Carter is visible in a ceiling recess. He leaves and she immobilizes him with a blue ray before changing into Mate Shang, the Thurn commander. He compels Carter to accompany him while outlining the Thurn's plan for ending Mars. Mate Shang, Darwin Shaw, transforms into a Zodangan cop and escorts Carter outdoors after becoming stuck in a wedding procession traffic bottleneck. Then, as they witness Dija Thoris being carried along a street, Shang transforms into an elderly woman, Eileen Page. Carter is informed by Mate Shang somewhat casually that Dija Thoris and anybody else with knowledge of the ninth ray would be executed following the wedding. Carter is about to escape on the light flyer when Woola rushes in and manages to take out Shang's leash. He crashes near Sola after an intense pursuit. He makes the decision to head back to Tharkville and enlist their assistance after realizing he cannot take on the Zodangan troops or the Thurns on his own. Despite the Tharks throwing Carter in jail, where he discovers a chained-up Tars Tarkus, Carter and Sola arrive unharmed. Carter is informed by Tarkus that the one-tusked Tal Haegis overthrew him. When Tarkus finds out that Carter brought Sola back, he is incensed and would have killed him if he hadn't been severely wounded and depleted of all his strength. The convicts are subsequently brought to a gigantic coliseum where they are forced to fight First One, then 2 enormous white apes. Carter is able to slay the first beast before the other when Sola creates a distraction in the spectator area. He challenges Tal Haggis for the role of Jeddak while the Tharks applaud him. Carter uses one precise blow to cut off his head. The Tharks' Jeddak now has an army that is ready to fight for him. To prevent the wedding, he leads them back to Zodanga. The city is deserted when they arrive because everyone has left for Helium. Since they had little chance of arriving at the wedding in time, an unimpressed Taurus Tarkus hits Carter in the head. When Carter gestures toward the airships and the Tharks refuse, he takes off in a light flyer by himself. He is spotted by Zodangan guards as he approaches, but because he is piloting a Zondangan craft, they believe he is a part of their scheme and allow him to pass. Carter bursts in just as the wedding ceremony is about to end. Although Dija Thoris is ecstatic to meet him, it is already too late for the signal has been sent. When the Heliumites are attacked by Zodangans, Mate Shang and his Blue Ray once more appear unbeatable. The Tharks exit to follow their captain as an enormous light ship also crashes in suddenly. They battle against the Zodangans by enlisting in the Heliumite army. While Mate Shang is on the run, Carter finds the medallion. Sab then is slain in the melee by the blue gadget he cherished so much. Carter takes his wedding ring and asks Dija to marry him now that the urgent threat posed by Zodanga has vanished and he is aware of where his heart lies. Helium and Thark are delighted when she agrees. The following evening, Carter leaves the room because he is restless. The medallion is thrown into the gorge below. The guard praises him and reaches out to grab him as he enters the bedchamber. He then transforms into Mate Shang to send Carter back to the cave in Arizona. The Colonel is only a skeleton when Carter awakens. The gold and Thurn's body have vanished, and he is stiff, dusty, and bearded. Carter's story continues as he comes to the conclusion that there must be other Thurns on Earth, and spends the following 10 years searching for a second medallion. He seems to discover something on the Orkney Islands. He gets a crypt ready on his property so he can go back to Mars and leave his body there in safety. It has to be trusted to nephew Edgar to keep him safe, because it is possible that the Thurns will attack his body. Possibly as Edgar is reading the journal. Edgar is horrified and rushes to examine the crypt without realizing he is being pursued. He discovers the password to enter after a few anxious seconds and unlocks the door, but the crypt is empty. Behind Edgar, a Thurn comes and is about to murder him when he gets shot. Carter is outside with a rifle when Edgar turns around to look at him. When Carter explains that he used a medication to make it seem as though he had passed away, Edgar learns that Carter was really using him as bait to get a Thurn to come out of hiding, so that Carter could get the medallion he needs to return to Dija Thoris. Carter corrects him and explains that Edgar will in fact play a crucial part in protecting Carter's body when he travels to his true home on Mars. Carter enters the crypt, lies down, and recites the command to return to Barsoom while holding the medallion that belonged to the deceased Thurn. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notification for more movie recaps.